Hello, everybody. Hello, YouTube. Welcome back. Welcome back. Make sure I'm recording. I am. It is your girl, Aten, all up in the Instagram. No, YouTube building. If I'm squinting, it's because I just took off my sunglasses, so I apologize in advance. Okay? Okay. So I'm really happy to be back here. I hope everyone's doing well, by the way. I am recovering from the cooties that has been passed around in my house. So if I sound a little off or if I'm clearing my throat, apologies in advance. It feels like I have not talked to you guys in a while, which is crazy because my last upload hasn't even been that long ago. But anyway, should I wear my glasses for the video? Because I feel like I can't really connect like I want to connect. So yeah, I'm really, really excited about today's video. It is episode 3 of the Not My Mother's Daughter series. And today we're going to be diving into a better understanding of projections from my personal standpoint. Because, you know, a lot of the time, when people talk about ascension, or even when I feel like I have ascended past certain experiences, people, situations, things, a lot of the time I find that there will be certain conversations, certain reminders, certain events that will happen in my life that will really bring an experience full circle, so I can revisit that said thing or said lesson that I thought I was past, and so enlightened on that it couldn't happen to me again. And I noticed that recently, the theme of those lessons, I don't know why I'm doing this, the theme of those lessons has been getting a better understanding of projections, and not and knowing the triggers, knowing my triggers, knowing the insights as to how to prevent it, and not only to prevent it, but for me figure out where it's coming from and really pinpoint the root of that, so there's not a repetition of it. You following what I'm saying? Let's just continue. So as always, you guys know I have my notes, and we are going to begin. I'm not sure if this friend of mine knows it, but recently I was having a discussion over messages, whatever, with a friend of mine. And it sort of led me down a rabbit hole of really sitting with myself and how I engage with people who I deem as friends, and really sitting with myself to ensure that I am showing up in a way that I want to be perceived, and making sure the way I want to be perceived is not based in any um, type of misinformation or a misrepresentation of who I am. And the more I explain this video, the more I explain the information in this video, the more it will make sense. So I will, get straight to the point and be as concise as possible. And as always, comments, I don't know why I didn't say this in the beginning, but as always, comments are turned off. If you guys do want to interact, I do keep live engagement for this series in the community tab, or you can communicate or reach out to me. I don't know why I'm speaking so weird today. Communicate or reach out to me in any of my other social platforms that will always be in the description box down below. So anyway, I was talking to a friend of mine, a really good friend of mine, and we were communicating via message and via audio, right? Just about how we want to show up in communication for one another, what that looks like, and why, the conversation was brought about. Because I do believe, like, everyone is experiencing, many of us who are tapped in and paying attention, just to the events that's going on in our life. Sorry, I thought that was my daughter. To the events that are going on in our lives, and just the energy collectively about I forgot my train of thought. About really, honoring our space, and we're all changing and shifting and adapting. And I know with this particular friend, with the both of us, that is beginning to look different in our friendship and in our relationship. And this is not a bad thing. This is a good thing. But I remember as I was having this conversation with my friend, I started to grow very irritated with the dialogue, but not necessarily the dialogue, more so the context that was in the dialogue. And again, by no means was I irritated at the fact. I'm looking away, guys, a lot because of the sun. I apologize. It was like, you're right here and the sun's right here. I'm sorry. But yeah, by no means was I irritated with, how do I explain that to you? I was not irritated with the friend. I was growing irritated again by the dialogue and the conversation, and I couldn't quite figure out why. So I really just needed to kind of just sit down, because it's very seldom that I grow irritated with my friends. I'm not saying that emotions don't arise and I don't have a diversity of emotions with my friends, but it's just I'm very transparent with communicating my needs and their wants, my needs and my wants, and they're very transparent with communicating their needs and their wants to me. So there's not really any opportunity to really fester in anything, because it's like, I said what I said, you said what you said, and then we move on. You understand? So as I began to sit with, whenever I find myself irritated or bothered or upset or angry, whatever the case may be, it usually is like a, how do I say that? It usually comes in stages. Like, so the first stage in this example was just me noticing that I'm irritated. And then the second stage was, okay, where in the messages, or in this case, or what in the audio, what in the conversation that triggered the irritation. And then sort of after that, it gets broken down into like different like subcategories and things like that until I arrive at the root of what it is. And I remember my irritation started to grow when this friend, how I interpreted it as, kind of just claimed her disinterest with wanting to keep communication in the intensity and frequency as it used to be, or as, yeah, am I saying that right? Yeah, as it used to be. And the more I sat with the idea of, and it was the way it was framed that started to bother me. And I realized, like, as I sat longer in the irritation, that it was triggered by a onset of something that I'm still currently working through, that I don't necessarily feel relevant to share at this time. But what I will say is, I felt that after, I thought that was it. I thought that thing that I realized, like, okay, girl, like, yeah, okay, like, this is it. This is the thing that, that this is the reason why it's bothering you. I thought that once I had that big aha moment and that big epiphany of enlightenment, I thought the irritation would dissipate. But honestly, it felt like once I gave myself permission to really feel the irritation and start going through the layers of what the irritation was compiled to be, it's like it grew more, and I grew more irritable. Oh, I hate a little piece of hair. I grew more irritable. I grew more irritated, and I was just like, "What the fuck is this?" Like, I thought I solved the puzzle. Like, where's my Scooby snack? Like, there's more to unpack. Like, what the fuck? Like, oh god, the joys of being self-aware, right? So in this next part, I keep cutting the clips because I'm relying heavily on my notes, and I was trying to memorize everything I wanted to talk about. But it's okay if I have to look at my notes. So I don't know why I'm doing that to myself. So this next chunk, this next section, I will be looking down a lot for the notes. So this is what I wrote, and then we'll break it down. Kind of what I was saying to you guys already. It was almost like as soon as I gave myself permission to explore that awareness, it's like everything else started to flood in. And it was a lot that I pulled in, and that it was a lot of information that was coming in at one time, because again, I wasn't expecting I wasn't I wasn't expecting to have a kind of like self-awareness reality check session with myself. Like, I welcome those moments, but I didn't think it was something of any seriousness to really sit in and unpack. Like, because that shit gets that shit gets annoying on some days. Like, I just want to shake my ass. Like, I don't want to talk about trauma. Like, you know what I mean? But anyway, so I'm gonna read you guys off a couple of different pieces of information that was sort of flooding in, and then again, like I said, we'll break it down from there. So the first thing I started to realize is that motherhood can be lonely at times, and sometimes having friends who are not mothers themselves can really make the experience of connecting and being heard quite isolating, because the language can be drastically different. And I wrote this again, yes, because the information that was coming in, but the friend who I'm mentioning, she doesn't have any kids. And this is something that I was warned prior to giving birth and, being a mom, that this was going to happen, but I never really experienced it. Well, I have, but majority of the people who I'm friends with have children. You know what I mean? So there's not that many people who I'm associated with or friends with who fit the category of not being a mom. So I wasn't necessarily prepared or thinking about or really just really gave it any thought that this might one day happen to me. And I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I'm not saying that my friend is in any, how do I say that? Anything is wrong with her or anything like that. But I do tend to notice that, and I think motherhood in it of itself is a conversation that can be had for multiple different uploads. But I have found that once I gave birth, I realized that I've always been very selective of my time. I've always been very selective with who I want to share my time with, because I naturally, I just like my own space. I'm a person who's kind of just like, I don't want to say loner, but I enjoy my own solitude. So I'm very selective with who I let in. So that already kind of niches down the experience and weeds out a lot of unnecessary bullshit, because I'm not really putting myself in environments where I have to deal with the bullshit. Notice, like, after giving birth and after becoming a mother, I was tottering a fine line between loneliness that I did not realize and mistaking it as solitude. Because I do feel like, especially as a first time mom, I'm a first time mom, there is a transitionary period. And for me, that looked like hibernation and many episodes of, I don't want to call it solitude. I want to call it isolation, in the process of figuring out what my new version of solitude looked like for me. You following what I'm saying? And I realized that, I feel like with we all go through different upgrades in life, and motherhood was a huge upgrade, one that came with many superpowers, awarenesses, and just a lot of information I was not expecting. And part of that was speaking a different language that my mind and my body had to adjust to. And I feel like a lot of the time, and that language can be unique to every mother, but there's a universal language, there's a universal embodiment of being a mother, of being a motherhood, that any mother, if you're watching this, can relate to. And I feel like when you're speaking that language and in that embodiment, sometimes that does not necessarily translate over with your friends who are non-mothers and don't have children. You understand? I'm mainly referring to mothers who don't have children, because I feel like you can mother in any type of way, but I'm speaking to the mothering that is in the capacity of actually pushing and birthing out a child yourself. And nothing in this conversation that I had with my friend particularly alluded to the motherhood. It was just, like I said, an awareness, like, damn, like shit is just really different now. Like, and it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all. And I believe what triggered that is just because I guess like the way I speak sometimes now, sometimes that can stem from a place of, certain awarenesses through gaps in times that I'm learning in motherhood, but it doesn't necessarily come off like that again when you're speaking to somebody who is not a mother themselves. So that was one of the channels of information that was coming in. The second one, which is a big one that I want to really break down, and I also broke this down a lot in the Not My Mother's Daughter um uh cohort. Cohort. And that is, sometimes I can mistake depth and friendly interactions as this need to merge, since I sense a deep, profound similarity and likeness with one another. And this, I realize again, this is why I wanted to have this conversation, because it wasn't just this particular person who triggered these thoughts and epiphanies. It was a couple of people who I'm still great friends. Who I'm still great friends with. They did nothing wrong. Again, just conversation. But I noticed a theme with both of them that I needed to address internally, and that I kind of wanted to unpack and explore with you guys, because it doesn't matter how much information I know. It doesn't. Oh, is the screen getting dark? I can't tell. Ah, no. Glasses on. Okay, it is getting dark. Hang on, girl. Not, but I can't really tell. And I'm working with daylight and yeah. So yeah, as I was saying, you know, the reason why I like to have conversations like this, and the reason why I kind of put myself out there on the chopping block, is not to give the impression that I, you know, how do I frame that? How do I frame this too? It's not to give the impression that I know all, or I don't know, insert whatever. I don't know. I'm just talking. But it's more so to show that just because people like myself who are enlightened, who have went through a profound experience of lessons and of trials and tribulation, that doesn't mean that doesn't mean the lessons don't repeat itself to make sure that it's truly understood. And that doesn't mean that I still don't go through experiences and nuances that I that I can share, that I can't share with you guys. Am I saying that right? I don't know. I feel like I'm going through like an upgrade or something right now, because literally I've been talking backwards. I've been writing backwards, not intentionally, like not at all. Like talking backwards, writing backwards. Like I feel like I'm writing sentences that aren't mine. Anyway, we can talk about that later, but I definitely feel like I am 100% going through an upgrade. So I appreciate you guys bearing with me as I explain this conversation today. But yeah, so let's regroup. So yeah, I noticed there was a theme going on with the two people who I was talking with at that time, and it's so weird because they don't know each other, but it was the same. It's like the experiences were mimicking itself, and that's for me. That's why I was like, okay, let me just take a second and sit down. And sometimes, and I'm not saying also, the conversation didn't necessarily trigger. There was nothing in the conversation. Okay, let me just make this last disclaimer because I feel like I'm just talking like all over. I'm talking very choppy today. A lot of these downloads that came in, I don't know if I said it already, so I'm just going to say it again. A lot of these downloads that came in, it wasn't necessarily brought up in any of the conversations that I had with these two people. It was more so just channels of information that was coming in all at once. Over information, I guess I still need to bring full circle and just be cautious of and sit with. Okay. So in the past, I noticed that with myself, I would get overly excited whenever I would feel like I was sharing a level of depth or similarity with someone. Because as I explained previously to you guys, I am very selective with the people who I keep around. And also, I do feel like, what did I write down? It was something I wrote down very in particular. Um, You know, now the communication and language is very different because the community that I'm pulling in now is very different from the community that I guess that I had previously. And this is where the energy of what I'm speaking I used to reside more in. Just because you are experiencing and noticing a certain level of depth, characteristics, likeness with someone, right? That doesn't mean that you need to automatically and deeply explore that, right? That's not what that means. It's just something that you can take notice of. It's something that you can take caution to, and it's something that it doesn't mean you need to shut down the excitement, but I think this is where the discernment needs to come in. And for me, I was one of the reasons why I was landing myself in a lot of trouble is because I was just running with that excitement and kind of going full speed ahead with it, or running with the level of depth that I realized that was coming out with said person, and just running with it. But even, and this is what happens when you linger in the energy of excitement too long, it's like when you're in that channel of excitement and you don't take a moment to pull yourself out of it, anything can look like anything. Like, you know what I'm trying to say? Like depth, like what you're perceiving as excitement, you can perceive as depth. What you are perceiving as a deep, profound connection that really is just based in excitement, that's all you're seeing because you're in that one channel of experience. Does that make sense? It's like you're not coming out of that to really observe yourself as a bystander and as an outsider looking from the outside in. It's more so you're just like rolling with whatever the first knee-jerk reactions that are coming out. I hope that makes sense. And another thing that I wrote down, I said, and this happens because there was this scarcity mindset that I had previously, with feeling like I'll never be fully understood. So as soon as I came across someone who could speak the same language of my depth, I wanted to explore that. And that kind of just goes into what I was saying. It's like when you don't take the time to one, also to really realize that that person is speaking the same language as you, because I feel like excitement can really be a dangerous game, especially as a woman, because just like just like how birth can be a powerful orbit, an aura of energy, just how our orgasms are a powerful orbit of energy, so is anything woman comes in frequency with, it gets quantified and multiplied. You know what I'm saying? And just as that channel of excitement, that ripple effect that's coming out into the universe and coming out into the physical realm, it may not be one that people have the privilege of experiencing it. And it may, and if you're not, and to flip it back on myself or to flip it back on yourself, it may not be something necessarily ready for other people in your orbit to really have any access to. Because sometimes excitement just needs to be excitement notated in the brain. It doesn't need to be something that's acted upon. You feel what I'm saying? Sometimes it's okay just to realize and make a mental note that, like, okay, like I really like this person, like I really fuck with this person, but let's wait to see and explore what that looks like. I feel like a lot of time, especially this, again, this is a lesson that I really had to learn. A lot of the time when when you decide to take the lead in approaching new dynamics out of that excitement. All right, beautiful people, we had to come inside because my phone is overheating and it is quite hot outside. So, and I didn't realize how long I've been talking for. So I am going to just kind of wrap up my points and yeah, move on with the next topic. So I'm just going to move forward because I don't know exactly what I was talking about. I'll just speak on the next thing that I realized. So the next thing that I realized is that I was becoming irritable with not only this person, but I already said this, but a couple people around this time, because I was feeling because I was feeling misunderstood at their inability to process my performative behavior. And I'll try to explain this the best way I know how. So I feel like The reason why I wanted to kind of talk about projections today is that I think there is a thing, and if you hear anything, there's kids playing in the background, so hopefully the mic doesn't pick up, because I could hear them. But I think there is a thing, right? With when we talk about projections a lot, when I say we, I'm talking about the collective. Like everyone wants to talk about projections and not projecting and not gaslighting. But I also think it's quite possible to project in a way of, how do I explain that? Project in a way of how you, give me a second. I guess project in a way that means well, but it's still, you're still not resonating from a place of authenticity. And I guess what I meant by, sorry, I guess what I mean by this is that for some reason, motherhood keeps ringing back. So I guess I'll circle it back to motherhood. What I mean by this is that, yes, I have a lot of awareness. Yes, I've been through a lot of shit. Yes, I always try to do my best as it pertains to showing up in my friendships and relationships or whatever, platonic or intimate, right? But I do find myself in this gray matter sometimes with being a mom, with being, a parent now to somebody, that I find that I'm not saying that there's a need for me to perform, but I do find that sometimes I feel like, and this might be something just perceived that I'm just perceiving myself, but I really don't think so. I feel like a lot of the time since becoming a mom, that's all I'm labeled as. And there's so much more to me than that, but I feel like the depth gets erased and it's just mom in the front of it. So I do find that sometimes when I interact with those who are close to me, in particular my friends or acquaintances who aren't moms themselves, I find that I try to show up in a way that reads that I'm not just a mom, to prove that, like, I'm not just a mom, but it ends up coming out really, really wonky. And this is also a projection. This also goes into the realm of projection. This also goes into the realm of performative behavior, because it's just like, yes, I understand the notion of, like, those who love you and those who blah, blah, blah will honor you and love you as you are. I understand that. But it's just like sometimes it's just like, fuck, like, I'm not just a mom, bitches. Like, I'm here. Like, you know what I mean? And some might say, oh, well, if they're making you feel like that, then they're not your friend or they're not the one. I don't think that. I think that can apply for some people. I think for me, it's just like, I guess there was a piece of me that was unwilling to accept that, like, this is just how it is. Like, yes, Aten, like, you are a mom now. Like, yes, your dynamics with people that are going to change. They have been changing drastically. But it's like, that's not in your jurisdiction to control. You know what I'm saying? You can't control the inevitable. And kind of arriving to this point, it still is a little like, damn, like, interesting. Not in a bad way. It's just interesting. Because I don't know, like, and I think I said something about loneliness earlier, like going back to the point of, like, motherhood being lonely. It's not just motherhood that's lonely. And when I say lonely, I don't mean in like this sad damsel in distress kind of way. It's just, it can be lonely. It can be lonely because there's so many awarenesses and processes that you're upgrading and deleting and you're rebooting, and then as you do your reboot, or upgrade, if you will. Like, there's a lot of things that come and go with that. And then I also find that being the type of woman that I am, knowing what I know in this world and in this esoteric knowledge, there's another layer of sort of like, damn, like, can anybody get it? Like, damn, is there anybody to talk to? And I'm not, and yes, obviously the answer is yes. I'm just being a little bit dramatic right now to kind of just reel my point in so I can move on to the next one. But it does, sometimes I do have the feeling of just like shit, like when is like, kind of just going back to the thing I said about language. I'll just leave it at that. And then let me see. The last point that I have is this kind of goes into one of my previous points before. There are many times where I've come into this awareness about myself and how I participate in said interaction and relationship. But because I was not giving myself time to really sit with this information, it's like the window of opportunities where I should have let my directness and authenticity shine, I filled it with choosing to perform in a way that was easily digestible for me and said person, because I was worried about not having the control over the outcome, over what the outcome would be, and and if I would be accepted for the orientation of me releasing and letting go. And yeah, I'll kind of just leave it at that. This is way over 30 minutes, but it's okay. I'll kind of just leave it at that. Again, this conversation, and I don't know, I'm definitely, I don't know if, my friends are going to look at this and be like, you got all of that from a text message, but I really do look beyond words and really kind of just allow myself to feel whatever flows in. And like I said, like the theme that was being like overtly shown between both people, it was just time for me to just sit with this information a little bit more uh innate, if that makes any sense. So yeah, that is all I have for today's discussion. If you're liking and vibing with the content, please be sure to hit that subscription. Okay, we would love to have you part of the Sonder Moments family, community. Also give this video a thumbs up. I don't know why I'm doing it like this. And again, if you would like to engage, keep up with me, you're always more than welcome to take a peruse to look at the community section, because I do upload quite often about, general prompts, questions, check-ins, things of that nature. Or you can feel free to send me an email or follow me on any of my socials down below. Until next time, peace, darling. Peace, 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 darling.